acting, and they were people volunteering to go into the Navy, Air Force, Army, and Marines. And so, you needed to choose what you want to do. So in the draft, what they do is they tell you where to go. You don't choose where to go. They tell you you're going here, you're going here. So I chose to go in the Marine Corps. Since I was a little kid, I wanted to be a Marine. So when I joined, you had 8 weeks, actually 12 weeks of training. And then from there, you go over to Camp Pendleton and you have another 90 days of training. And then you got on a ship. The U.S. Gaffey got on a ship with 5,000 Marines. And then we started a 22-day journey to Vietnam. It was December time. And so when I got to Okinawa, we stopped in Okinawa. And from there, we went to Vietnam. We landed in Da Nang, Vietnam. And it was just incredible to see, Vietnam, to hear those all over the country. You could tell there was combat going on. So they told you what company you're going to be in. So they told me you're in Alpha Company 17. So I went over to Alpha 17. We were down in Chulai before we came to Da Nang. And I'll never forget, it was December the 22nd or 21st that I got there. In 3 days, it would be Christmas Eve. Can you believe it? In the bush, in Vietnam, in a war zone. How in the heck do you celebrate, Christmas? So we went ahead, and on the 24th, we had foxholes, and so we decided that we had to be in that foxhole because the enemy doesn't care about Christmas. It's about Christ, so they're not Christians. So we went, Camateros, Chicatelli, and myself were in that foxhole, and we were talking about, Christmases in the past in their homes with their families. And I'll never forget thinking about Christmas when I was a kid. Christmas where my dad would drink and my family would drink, and we ended up celebrating self instead of celebrating Christ. And so what happened to me is that from that point on, every Christmas was different for me, because what happened is I began to see a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, and a lot of people that I loved, that I knew, they were not only, killed, but a lot of them were demaned. A lot of them lost their bodies, and you see all this disaster going on, and how do you come back to normality, to become normal like everybody else when you come back after combat 13 months? It's my story that I decided to come back. No, they told me to leave Vietnam. And they asked me to leave Vietnam because of the things that I was going through and the things I was doing. So I ended up at Oakland Naval Hospital for 6 months locked up. I couldn't see my family. So I learned a lot there. I was not a Christian. I learned a lot there. What happens to somebody that's going crazy? Somebody that's going crazy. I learned that I had a lot of hate. I didn't like people, and I wanted to kill people. That was my life. And my wife-to-be, Sharon, went to school together. In high school, went together. We were never boyfriend, girlfriend. So during Vietnam War, we fell in love with each other, writing letters to each other. And so when I came home, she came up to see me at Oakland Naval Hospital. She's no longer there. And for the first time, I saw my mom and my dad, and I saw her, not my brothers or my sisters. And so when I saw her, it was a real different time and different mood for her and I, that not only we loved each other, but we wanted to get married to each other. So we went ahead and did that. During that time, I learned a lot about suffering from Vietnam to that particular time back in the States. That suffering that I experienced, in Vietnam, you can never get rid of it. As I accepted Christ and began to see suffering all around me, as a pastor, I would have to go to people's homes and pray for them. They had cancer, or they had other kind of things they went through, and they were going home to be with the Lord. That I still didn't feel anything about suffering, nothing, until it came home. Until I came home, where my dad experienced a heart attack. And he was with me in Colombia, and my other father-in-law thought he was drunk, because, he was staggering on the mission station. So I said, my dad doesn't drink anymore. So while we found out he had a stroke. So I brought him home, took him to the hospital. They began to investigate what was the problem with him. So they kept him in the hospital. And when they released him, it was different. He was blind. He couldn't speak. He could only hear. So we set up a little thing where one is yes, two is no. And so they sent him home. We were at home, and I constantly visited him, took care of him. And then when it was time for him to go to hospice, we took him to hospice. And in hospice, I learned a lot suffering, because not only my father-in-law had been there, my dad was there. And you watch around, in every room, and everybody's suffering. Everybody's going through things, waiting to die. And so my dad, when he died, I had not only a lot of hurt because he accepted Christ. I asked him to forgive me for what I did to him. And years later, my mom is going to die. I'll never forget this. She's in the rest home. And I knew she was going to die. So that night, when I was with her, I was a little window to my right, and there was this little window, and I said, Mom, I want to ask you something. She couldn't speak, she couldn't see, like my dad. And she had no heart attack. It was just, I guess, something that she was going through. So I held her hand, and I asked her to forgive me. I asked her to forgive me. And the reason I asked her to forgive is because what I did to her, what I did to my dad, what I did to my whole family. And I had a hold of her hand, and she took my hand and she squeezed it as hard as she could to let me know, hey, I love you, I forgive you, and I'm your mom. And man, I just started weeping. I never weep. I started weeping. And I began to understand suffering. The suffering, nothing you play with. Suffering is a time of depression, a time where you begin to look around and you say, you know what, suffering's real, and maybe one day I'm going to suffer my life. So we go on, and so about 15 years later, or actually 15 years in my life, I found out that I couldn't be normal. I was in Vietnam filming, and I was doing kendo, or samurai fighting, for 6 years. And when you do kendo, you have the whole, the mask, the headgear, you have the breastplate, you have everything, and you fight another person. And what they do, there's 3 strokes. First stroke is actually to the head, then to the arms, and then you cut them in half. That's the way it is. So I kept getting in the head. So I've been in Vietnam, an explosion. So we didn't know whether it was Vietnam. I went to the VA, or it was something I suffered because of kendo. So what happened is that I was doing kendo one day, and I told my instructor, I got to stop right now. I got to stop, because I began not only to feel dizzy, but I stopped talking, and I couldn't hear. So I thought, oh, great, now I'm going to have this. Well, I've had it for 15 years, and it's been a real trial in my life. 15 years, a trial in my life. And then I read out of the book of James, which was really neat, kind of the Lord speaking to my heart. In James chapter 1, beginning with verse 2, he says, my brethren, count it with all joy when you fall into various trials. I was going through a trial. Knowing that the testing of your faith, also my faith is being tested. And it produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach. And if, it says, and it will be given unto him. But let him ask by faith. Faith is such an important word. I was talking this morning to the staff. Without faith, you can do nothing. So he says, and I will give him, or I will give to him, but let him ask by faith without doubting. For he who doubts is like a wave of the sea driven and tossed by the wind. For let not that man suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. Well, that was me. When I read that, that was me. And I learned that if God's in control, then I need to believe in him. I need to put my faith in him, my actual infirmity in him. And then again, the book of James, I came to verse 12 where he says, blessed is the man who endures temptation, for when he is being approved, he will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him. So, the crown, loving him loving me. And I think that a lot of times Christians don't understand that. Maybe you're out there, you don't understand this whole thing. You're going through something in your life. You say, well, God doesn't love me. You know, my wife, the thing she's gone through for the last 12 years, you know, she's had stage 4 breast cancer, liver cancer now, 7 tumors. Her liver now is actually disintegrating. Well, you know what happens with that. She's going to be with the Lord. So her and I have been talking about suffering, but I've been watching her suffer. I've been watching for a long time. She never complains. She never murmurs or anything like that. She realizes that she's going through something in her life that God has put her through. This morning, we were crying together. We were praying together. And she started to say, Lord, I hurt so much, and Lord, just take me home, Lord. I don't want to stumble anybody. I said, how can you stumble anybody, Sharon? When you're the one hurting, the one that's going through a lot of things in your life, and yet people complain and people murmur. Young guys learn that later on in life, that you can't have a perfect life. You can't have perfect health. I mean, I had a perfect health. I mean, I'm in the martial arts. I mean, I'm going here, I'm doing this, never complain, And then when I get to be about maybe 60, in my 60s, I get this situation in my life that the last 2 days I've had 2 of those things in my life. But God has a purpose for it. I really believe that, a purpose for that. I don't know what his purpose is, but I said, Lord, whatever you have for my life, man, I accept it. I accept it. And if it's for a lifetime, I accept it. If I have to ride my bike down into downtown here where I live, I'll do it, and I've done it. If I have to go somewhere else, I hire a taxi to take me. But I don't want to burden anybody in my life. I really don't. I don't expect anybody to take care of me. I think that Pastor Chuck Smith was a great example to me, the way he brought me up in the Lord and serving with him in the board for almost 50 years, because, he died when he was in his 80s. And so he taught me a lot about suffering. I went to see him in the hospital because, he was real sick. And I took him to the hospital. I went to the hospital, and I took with me Ryan. Ryan went with me. And he saw Ryan. And he said, Ryan, come over here. I want to pray for you. So he laid hands on Ryan, and he said, Ryan, go do ministry, the ministry God is going to do. And it was just incredible to see that. To see that Chuck cared for Ryan. Another instance, back in the 90s, Raul Jr. had a car that he dropped me off at Calvary. He had to pick me up. And so I'm in the office. I see Raul pull up in his car. And so I'm getting ready to leave. Chuck's outside. I said, Chuck, I'll see you next week. He says, okay, I'll see you later, Raul. God bless you. Hi, Raleigh. Boom. We're gone. The next Monday, Chuck gets up because he's going to have a Monday study. And it's in the tape. And he says, you know why I have Monday night? It's because I saw Raul Jr., Raul's son, in that car. And I had missed a whole generation. That's what Chuck said. I've missed a whole generation. And so he started Monday nights. And from that point on, God took off as Chuck would teach the Monday night service. So many young people went. I'm at that point in my life that, I want to reach the young people for sure. I'm old, but I learn a lot from them. Believe me, it's so awesome. That I'm old, but I still can learn. A lot of times people get old and they can't learn, and that's why they die, because they can't learn anything. But, if you're a Christian and you're old and you're going through things in your life, hey, get active in the church. Go do something in the church. Don't sit in front of the TV watching movies or watching these stupid talk shows. Get up and do something. Go volunteer your time at the church. And when you volunteer your time in the church, then God can bless you tremendously. So when I get up on Sunday mornings and I do 3 services, I thank God that God has given me 3 services. I've always had big services, and I still have those services. When I look in the camera, I look at the people there. I don't even know the people. Baptizing yesterday, I was asking them how long they've come to Calvary, how long they've been Christians. And most of the people say, well, I've been here 1 month. I've been here a couple of weeks. I've been here 5 weeks. I've been here 5 years or 10 years. And I was going, God, Lord, you're bringing new people. Man, you blow me away, Lord. You totally blow me away that you're not through with me. And Lord, I'll know when you're through with me because you'll tell me. You will tell me. And Lord, I'm good at listening to you. I want to listen to you, Lord, like little Samuel, like David, like all these guys, Lord. And maybe if you're out there, and you're going through something in your life and, you don't know what's going on in your life, listen, go home. If you're home, get on your face. Get on your face. And I mean that, get on your face. And ask the Lord, what do you want me to do? You have an infirmity, you're sick, get on your face. Ask the Lord, how can you heal me, Lord? And I've learned that for the last 15 years, that when I have my little situations, man, I thank God that I'm not dead. I thank God that I'm not crippled. That the thing that I have, most people, they die, or most people can, when they have something like they pass out. And I don't have that. But my physician doesn't know what I have. That's the thing about it. It's an infirmity. That I thank God that I have it because it's brought me a long ways as a pastor, a long ways as a husband, a long ways with a lot of friends that I have in my life. And I just want to share with you what the Word of God says. James had a lot of situations in his life. But let me take you back to a person that really impressed me, and that's Job, the book of Job. That Satan has a big part in our lives. Because Satan not only was coming to the Lord every time he had to present himself. When you read chapter 1 and 2, the Lord said to him, Satan, where you been? You got the first Adam of here, the second, and then the third. So right in the second, I learned something, that Satan and his little angels have to present themselves every day. And the Lord said, where have you been? And Satan said, well, I've been cruising up and down, the earth. Cholos didn't start that. It's been around for a long time. Started with Satan, the low riders, whatever it is, I've been cruising up and down, So the Lord said, I want you to do something for me. Have you ever considered my servant Job? Wait a minute, by name Job. He said, I cruise the world around all the time, but you've never really let me come against Job. But I'll tell you what, if you let me, he will curse you to your face. And so the Lord said, go for it, except don't touch his life. Boom, he's gone. He didn't waste no time. The first thing that he does, he attacks his family, his finances, takes every finance that he had, every servant that he had, and his kids, his sons and daughters, wipes them out. Every runner that came to him to give him the bad news, Job would stand there. And at the end, when he found out that his son and his daughters were dead, he said, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Can you say that? Can I say that? I'll say that. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Because I'm ready to do whatever God wants me to do. If he takes me to heaven, hey, awesome. He'll take me to heaven. My wife and I this morning, we decided, and she knows, that very soon, she'll be in heaven. And she said, I'm going to wait for you. Hey, I'm coming right behind you. And when you know that God is so amazing, so beautiful, that now he's given me peace for a long time. Well, I'm emotional, but he's given me peace. And every time I get up in the mornings, I look over my right shoulder because I don't know if she's gone to be with the Lord, because that could happen now. And I kind of look at her and I hear her breathing. All right, Lord, you gave us one more day together. And so that's suffering, but we don't complain about that. There's an appointed time for a man to die, and then the judgment comes. The Bible says that. And so the time that she not only has, the time that I have, the time you have, whether you're young or old, doesn't really matter, that there is a day coming for each one of us that we're going to be gone. We're going to be gone in the presence of the Lord. So today, you're going through something in your life. You don't know what to do. I'm telling you what to do. Get on your face. Open the Bible. I will say read the book of Job. Just 2 chapters. Read the 2 chapters and see how God will speak to you. And when he speaks to you, go to the chapter 42, the book of Job, and you'll see what happens to Job. You'll blow your mind. He will see, you will see, because of his obedience, because of his suffering, the Lord said, this guy is too much. I'm going to reward him. And he did. There's only one way, and that's Jesus' way. There's an appointed time for a man to live and then to die. The judgment comes. So I want to tell you that I love you. I will pray for you. You pray for me. And that we continue to minister to you. I hope we're ministering to you. I hope you're telling other people that we have this program for you, not for us, for you, and that the word gets out so that people can not only know Christ in their lives, but you can get to know not only the audience, but you get to know your pastor. Maybe I'm not your pastor, but when you go to church, wherever you go, get to know your pastor. Pray for your pastor. Love your pastor. And love the elders. And love the pastors that are in that church. And love the congregation. That's what God has called us to do. So the Lord bless you. May he keep you, watch over you. God bless you.